Welcome everyone to workshop 4 of IEEE Curtin Aspire 26, which is about pitching and storytelling. Now, whether you are joining us from Curtin, Colombo, Bentley, Malaysia, or right here in Dubai, we welcome you. And over the past week, your cross-campus teams have worked really well to, identify real-world problems and come up with technical solutions, start your engineering, and also align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But here is the hard reality of any innovation challenge. The best engineering design does not win if the judges cannot understand it, right? You could build a revolutionary IoT sensor, right? Or you could make a really brilliant water purification unit, for example. But if you cannot explain why it matters clearly and persuasively in 8 short minutes for Aspire 26, all of that hard work gets overlooked, right? So today we're going to walk through on how to build a deck that actually lands and how to structure those 8 minutes in a way and see how to present your work in technical depth without losing your audience, right? And how to comfortably handle your Q&A session with the judges. Now, let's look at what we are actually getting scored on, right? Or what you're actually being scored with. Now, your week one business model canvas made up to 30% of your total mark, right? That means your final pitch deck and prototype demo carries a massive 70% of your final evaluation. Now, if you take a look at this breakdown on the screen, the technical design and your engineering quality is a big chunk here, which is of 20 points, right? Then you have your innovation, your SDG impact, and how feasible it is. That sits at 15 points each. And then we have the problem understanding, how good your prototype is, how's the quality, and your pitch delivery, right, which is of 10 points. And then we also have business visibility that is of 5 points. Now, even though we can see that pitch delivery itself is listed at 10 points, the delivery is really, the basis for all of those 100 points that you will get, right? So if your pitch, glosses over your system architecture, you lose your engineering marks. But if you don't explain your metrics well, your SDG scores also will take a hit. So how you talk about your project is how you unlock every single mark on this scoreboard that we can see. Okay. Uh, the next one is, let's understand how to decode the judging panel, right? So before you structure a single slide, you have to ask yourself, who is actually judging us, right? So your panel is made up of academics, IEEE representatives, and industry professionals. And they're going to look at your work through three main categories. Okay. So we have the technical way, the technical view of it, which is so I'll just tell you what are the three main ways that they can judge your project, right? So the first one is the technical way. The second one is the impact that it has, right? And the third way is the practicality of it. So let's understand what actually happens in the technical way, right? The first category. So here they're asking, is the engineering legit, right? Or that the math that you have applied, is that solid? Does it, give any, like, is it backed by proof? And have you actually designed a real architecture? Or, you're just throwing around some buzzwords. So these professionals really do judge you and really have a good eye for um, seeing what potential the team has or what work they've actually done. right? So that's the first one. They look at your technical aspects. The second one is the impact aspects, right? So they check if the problem that you have solved, right, or the solution that you have created, does it actually solve the problem, right? Or did it just or does it just have an SDG logo into a class project and say that, this aligns with everything that you have mentioned in the criteria? So they actually see if it solves a real problem, right? And the third category that we have is the most important one, is if this project is feasible, right? Could someone actually build this and deploy this in real world? So your goal in these 8 minutes of the pitch is to give all three of these categories to the judges exactly what they're looking for, right? So I hope this makes sense, and just understand what you're really doing, and then the pitch will naturally come into you, right? Right. Now, here we have a simple 8 slide roadmap that you can follow to make sure you hit every single rubric item before your time runs out. So I've divided this into different categories of how you can, time your slides. And the first slide that you can have is the hook, right? The problem and the human hook. Now we'll understand what human hook means, right? Because this is the most important part of how your presentation starts, right? This is what will keep your audience engaged. If your hook is weak, your audience will, um, you know, stop listening to you, or lose concentration if your hook is not right in the first minute. All right. So we make the point real and relatable right away. And that is how we hook the audience, right? The second slide is now the first slide can be either, it should be at least one slide, okay? Then the second part should be your SDG alignment and your target impact, right? So you call out a specific UN target and the clear metrics, right? So for this minimum, you can have 1 or 2 slides. And then this third category is the technical solution and the engineering depth. So here you can walk through your actual mechanism that you have used. That means your core mechanisms, such as your hardwares or your software stack that you have used, right? So you need to talk about that, and you can have a minimum of 2 to 4 slides, okay, to a maximum of 4. The fourth category is prototype demonstration, right? So we should show something that is working, right? So for example, if you have worked on a project, you could have probably a video clip of it, or a simulation that you have created, right? Or let's say a CAD walkthrough of the project, or let's say a live demo that you want to show quickly in 1 or 2 minutes. You can do that as well, right? So this is about prototype demonstration. We then, the fifth category is about innovation and feasibility, right? So here we'll explain why the approach is better, or why your approach is better than what's already out there, right? So any project that you work on, that is not just for the Aspire competition or anything. Let's say you want to research about a topic, or you want to work on a project. You will simply not build a project that already exists, right? Your project has to be novel, it has to be unique. And this is what you'll show in this category. You'll show what is that one difference. It could be one single difference that, you know, removes all the disadvantages of the previous solution and brings up a new, good, reliable product out there. So you need to talk about that, right? Why is your approach better than what's already out there? The sixth category is your business viability and how scalable it is, right? Viability means how you can deploy it, for example, right? So your deployment costs, let's say you actually want to implement it, what is the real cost, the model that you have built, and how it can be scalable, right? How you can increase it. So this is what you'll talk about here. And you'll also talk about, okay, so this was your sixth category. Your seventh category is the cross campus team and traction, right? So you will actually show off your team's regional strength across Dubai, Bentley, Malaysia, and Colombo, and show what each of the team member has contributed to the project, right? This is very important as well. Then the last category is the vision, right? And how you wrap up your entire deck. So how I said, the first hook should be strong, right? That means you should have a slide, have a big number that actually hooks your audience and makes the topic relatable to the audience even before you start talking about it. And you end it with the same thing. You end on a strong, memorable note, right? So this is all about the 8-minute pitch architecture that you can follow. Right, right. So this is about the presentation. Now, yeah. Now, we all know who he is. He is Steve Jobs, right? And we know him as a very important person who always delivers a really good, impactful presentation on any launch of a new Apple product, right? Of course, now it is Tim Cook, but Steve Jobs also used the hook method, right? So the first thing we spoke about was hooking your audience, right? And we'll actually see how to do that, right? How Steve Jobs did it. What was his method? So let's talk about the opening lines, right? Now think about how Steve Jobs launched the original iPhone back in 2007, right? Now, he did not start with technical specs, the RAM that it had or the battery storage that it provided, sorry, the battery voltage. He started with a clear problem, right? He said smartphones aren't that smart and they're not easy to use. So, what did he do exactly? He created a villain. The like what he said was clunky keypads, for example, right? The previous phones had clunky keypads and a broken mobile internet at all times, right? So he spoke about a problem. He spoke about that main culprit, for example, that actually, or through which he actually got an idea to create this product, right? So he spoke about that problem that people found too relatable to, right? So he spoke about the keypads of how difficult it is to type with the keypads and always the broken mobile internet issue, right? So he showed all of this before he ever showed his solution. Now, in Aspire 26, you need that same kind of villain, right? So let's see, we have these two examples, right? So uh, the weak opening, an example for this could be water scarcity is a big global issue affecting millions of people. Sustainable Development Goal 6 is important because clean water matters. Now, a strong aspire hook, right? Something that you should take into account is it looks like this. In suburban Colombo, over 40% of small holder crop yields are lost every year due to undetected soil salinity spikes, right? So you're showing the problem with a number, right? You're showing a place where it is actually affected, real data, real things, right? So it also says existing industrial soil sensors cost upwards of $500, making real-time monitoring completely out of reach for local farmers. So if you see the weak opening on the left side and the strong aspire hook on the right side, the main difference that you can see is they've used numbers, they've used real data, they've used geographical information, right? So the second one it gives us place, it gives us people, and it gives us a specific number. These are the three things that you should include in your hook, right? So it shows why the current tool fails, which is $500, right? It is too expensive. And it creates an immediate tension. And as a judge, you instantly want to know, how did you fix this issue, right? So I hope you are clear about, how the strong aspiric hook works, right? So it should show clear urgency. It should show that tension or that sort of a suspense in the first line itself so that the audience is hooked on to your presentation, right? Now, you can also hook judges with visuals, right? So you can start with human tension. Like we saw, we form a narrative around the daily struggle of the affected community. So we saw that the people of Colombo were struggling with this particular issue. And you specify the urgency, right? You show why traditional workarounds fail and why immediate innovation is required. And then you anchor to reality. So you use authentic visuals of real world impact rather than um, some graphic that you can use, right? So yeah, this is how you can hook judges with certain big numbers, visuals, suspense, and all of those things. All right, now this is the one that carries 15 marks, which is providing UN SDG impact, right? Now, SDG alignment is not an optional thing in Aspire 26. If you leave out the SDG connection, you're missing out a core scoring requirement, right? So, plus there is a special award for the best SDG impact up for the grab. So make sure that you include an SDG alignment to your project. All right. Now, to get the full marks, need a little water break now and then. But yeah, to get the full marks, we go beyond the main icon, right? We don't just show that goal 6 and goal 7 icon. For example, we specify the exact SDG target, right? So, for example, like SDG target 6.3 is for reducing pollution and hazardous runoff, right? So we need to go beyond that main icon. Okay. And then we need to give the judges real numbers or measurable metrics. Okay. So instead of saying that our device saves energy, we should say our power routing algorithm um, works or cuts idle transformer and works by using more kilowatt hours per unit each week, right? So instead of saying a very basic statement, you should actually give real numbers to the judges, right? And how it can impact your, or how you can use it in your project, right? And then we should show scalability, right? Or long-term viability. We should explain how that impact grows. For example, over 1 to 5 years, right? So it should have a multi-year deployment horizon. It cannot be a one-time project and be stayed as it is, right? So any project that we work on must always be developed from time to time, right? That's how you ensure that you have continuous improvement and continuous developments in your project, right? Because something that you create today might not be or might not work out 5 years later. So you must come up with a developed solution for the same project that you've created. So you need to create a long-term viability demonstration for that. All right, now we have a small workshop. Okay. Let's pause the video right here for a quick 5-minute team exercise. Your task is I want your team to grab a pen and paper, right? And set a 5-minute timer. You write a 3-sentence problem hook for your Aspire project, right? 3 sentence. So what we can do is we can use this exact sentence that we have, the 3-sentence formula. Sentence one is the human or the place victim. That means who specifically suffers from this problem and where. Then we have the sentence two, which is the technical or the cost villain, right? Why do existing solutions fail them right now? That means you need to discuss about what is the current cost, what is the weight of it, what is the complexity, and all of those things. And then third sentence, which is the stakes, right? What is the exact cost of the consequence if this problem remains unsolved, right? So right now, pause the video, set a timer for 5 minutes, work with your teammates, and craft your three-sentence hook. Well, since you can pause it, we just pause for 5 minutes, and yeah. All right. Welcome back. Keep that three-sentence hook handy because that is going to become the exact opening line of slide one of your final presentation. All right. Now, right. Now, this brings us to the heaviest criteria on board, which is the technical design and the engineering quality, right? So, student teams usually fall into one of two traps here, which is they either say, like, stay too vague with the terms like we use AI and we use IoT, or they put screenshots of raw code on screen that no human can read in 10 seconds, right? So here's how we can hit that sweet spot. We need to make a slide that has a clean block diagram. And what should that block diagram have? It should show your inputs, your processing stage, your conditioning, and your output clearly, right? So have a simple block diagram that you can explain in a few seconds. And then you can explain your choices, right? So for example, we can briefly state. So this is just an example, right, of any project that you can work on. You briefly state why, let's say you choose an ESP32 over an Arduino, right? Or why a specific sensor range or a machine learning model fits your constraints. So you need to show the math here, right? So let's say you're working on an electronic engineering project. So if you're optimizing power, flow, or efficiency, you put the formula right on the slide. Okay, so you show the underlying logic, proofs to the judges that your engineering is real, right? So you show the math to them. You show them the basic or the foundation formula that you have used in your project. Okay. Um, right. So here you can demonstrate your prototype as well, right? So prototypes are strongly encouraged, whether you have a physical hardware setup or you have a software stack or a wireframe, or let's say you have a CAD simulation. You need to make sure you show it is working, right? Now, a quick tip on how to present your prototype is you can pre-record a short 20 to 30-second clips and put it right into your slide, right? Embed it in your slide. And right, so don't rely it on or don't upload it somewhere where it is difficult to be accessed somewhere else. So attach it right through your presentation, right? And don't rely on live demos, live hardware demos, I say, because during your presentation, we don't want any technical hiccups to happen. So make sure that you pre-record it a short 20 to 30-second clips only and put them in your presentation. And um, the second way, what you can try is you can add text callouts on screen, right? So judges know what they're looking for. For example, pointing out sensor inputs, right? So you can show that as well, or active data streams if you want to show. That's a second way that you can present. And the third thing is you can focus on proof, right? So you prove that your prototype is not just a 3D render, but you also show that it is functional, right? By backing up whatever claims that you have done in your project. So prototypes again are strongly encouraged, and please have them in your presentation. All right. Now we have the slide design, right? So when it comes to slide design, look at how Tim Cook and Apple run modern keynotes, right? So you'll almost never see a slide that is packed with bullet points or a lot of text or paragraph, right? Instead, they present one giant stat, a clean product, or a 3-column modular card, right? So they don't have a lot of content on slide to actually leave the audience bored, right? So this is the Tim Cook method. And there are 4 simple rules that keep your deck looking like a professional Apple presentation that they give. Rule 1 is we stick to one core idea per slide, right? We don't want to talk about multiple concepts in one slide and confuse the audience. So rule number 1 is stick to one core idea per slide. Rule number 2 is you need to have bold key numbers, right? So you need to make stats like, let's say, 85% efficiency or uh, $12 unit cost, right? So make all of these key numbers huge so a judge seeing the screen gets the point instantly. Okay, that's rule number 2. Rule number 3 is wherever possible, swap the text for visuals, right? So, for example, use diagrams or use um, timelines or a comparison card, right? Instead of having paragraphs and lines and all of those things, right? No one wants to read through a presentation while you are talking and explaining about the same thing, right? Both things cannot happen at the same time. So yeah, make sure that you swap text for visuals. And rule number 4 is you can keep the visual branding consistent. Yeah, that is also very important. So keep the visual branding consistent across all the slides. And make sure that you don't have a different design of a PowerPoint presentation in different slides, right? That just breaks the hook, or it breaks the concentration of the audiences, right? So make sure that you have a good slide design, because this also accounts for 15% of the best pitch award that we have for Aspire, right? So make sure that you work on your presentation really well and have those numbers bold. Right? Okay. Right. Now, in your presentation, please also highlight your cross-campus synergy across Dubai, Bentley, Malaysia, and Colombo. You need to just talk about for a few seconds how your team worked, collaboratively, how were the ideas pitched in, and um, how did you ensure that all the communication went smooth between all the members during the competition, right? So you need to talk about that as well. And next, we'll see how to master the 5 minute judge Q&A, right? So right after your 8 minutes pitch is done, you go straight into a 5 minute Q&A with the judges. And this is where the good teams lock in the win, right? So a great framework to keep your answers on track is the ARC, which is ARC. A stands for acknowledge, right? So you listen fully without interrupting and you acknowledge what they asked, right? So acknowledge means, um, let's say, they really liked your idea, for example, so the judges say, I really liked your idea about how you can, um, uh, you know, save or prevent food wastage by doing this. So you need to acknowledge that first. Thank you, judges, for appreciating our idea and supporting us throughout. That is the acknowledge that you have to give without interrupting or without stopping them in between. R stands for respond, where you give a direct answer that is backed by data in 30 to 40 seconds, right? So you decide beforehand which team member handles what. Okay. So example, um, your let's say the tech person in your team, right? That takes the hardware questions. Then you have a business person who handles the scalability or the viability. Okay. So you make sure that you assign your team members the type of questions that is asked. Okay. And please don't look confused when you're giving the presentation. Make sure that you answer to the point and your answers are not vague. Okay. Vague answer, it shows that you are underconfident and you have not understood much about your project. So make sure that you answer to the point and precisely. The third one, which is the C, that is confirm. So we wrap up, the team wraps up with a quick, does that clear that up, judge, right? So you confirm and make sure that they have, understood what you have conveyed. Right. So, a thing that you can include in your presentation is at the end, you can keep, 3 to 4 appendix slides at the end of your deck. So, for example, you're creating a circuit, right? So, you can have some extra circuit diagrams or your cost breakdowns. So, if a judge actually asks you a deep question and you jump straight to a slide, it looks like you're prepared for it, right? And it looks incredible. So that's a pro tip that you can use as well in your presentation. Okay, now to wrap things up, we run through this final sanity check before the pitch day, right? So first things first, you need to watch the clock. That means you need to practice with a timer to stay strictly under 8 minutes, right? Because going over will cost you points. And it's okay if you have used AI, right? But you need to declare its usage. You need to declare that you have used generative AI, for example, for visuals or for your code support, right? Anything. But you need to declare it and be honest because um, that is the competition rules, right? Um, Now, if team members are presenting from different campuses, you need to practice your who says what at what time so that you do not have any awkward pauses or any awkward silence, right? So you need to smooth out your transitions if you're planning a certain slide and not be stuck in between. So you need to practice at least 2 to 3 times to get a good flow of your presentation with the team members. All right. Now, again, thank you so much, you all, for being a part of this 2 week competition. I know you guys are working really hard towards it, and you've put in a lot of work building these solutions. So now take this format and build a clean presentation and tell a great story, right? Make sure that you have the best hook and Thank you so much. Best of luck with your pitches, and we can't wait to see what you have built. Thank you so much, everyone.